This is an aerial photograph of a roof taken with from a helicopter with a handheld camera. It shows where the areas of deterioration are, where there is entrapped moisture that allows us to predict the failure of the roof and be able to isolate places where we might patch, repair it in order to have it, to extend the service life somewhat. This is another aerial view of a roof taken from a helicopter, and it's similar. There is enough detail to see that there are, general areas that need repair, but it is not as specific as you might like to walk around with a caulking gun. That was a T300,
Okay.
the telephoto lens. This image is taken from a drone with an IR camera mounted on it, a View Pro, and the drone is able to be much closer. By law, you can only fly a helicopter or an airplane so close to buildings. The drone is 80 to 100 feet in the air, and I can see a lot more detail in the areas where it's failing and the detail in the roof. This allows repairmen or roofers or building management personnel to really isolate areas that are showing damage and the extent that the roof is beginning to fail, and gives you a much better model for predictive maintenance. It also is a much crisper image because of the detail taken. This can be accomplished with a much, much more expensive camera from a higher altitude, from an airplane, but this is a much more cost-effective method of analyzing this roof.
So without IR here, you would the entire roof require repair or replacement?
Well, without infrared analysis, basically people will just try to find where it's leaking from the damage coming into the space, and they'll chase leaks and keep patching and repairing it until they finally get frustrated enough that they just replace the whole roof. This allows them to be, to pinpoint the damage to the roof, and if it is feasible to do repairs to only a portion of the roof as opposed to replacing the whole roof. This is another drone image, and this is kind of like what we're seeing. Essentially, what we're seeing here is this one small section between other sections that really needs to be replaced, and the rest of it could get by with some patching.
The center section that we're talking here.
This here is actually a piece of equipment, and then you can see there's beginning to be some failure in the seams of the roof, but it's not completely failed yet. But this is pretty rough over here. Mm-hmm. This is in pretty bad shape. So they could replace this section now, do a little patching here, and they're probably good for another 3 or 4 years. And then they can start. They can stage their repairs to the building instead of having to do it all at once.
And they can have peace of mind on the left-hand side of this for even a longer period.
This is another section of actually the same facility. It was in several sections, and you can see from this that most of the roof is in very poor condition. There's a lot of entrapped moisture, and the only recommendation here is to replace the roof.
So when you're talking about entrapped moisture, can you tell me the procedure that you go through in order to establish that? I mean,
here
sure. we have a whole spectrum of colors.
Right. Well, what happens is what you have to do, and this is part of this. There's a lot of science here, but there's part of it's art as well. What you do is this roof analysis of commercial flat roofs happens at dusk, at the end of the day. What you have to do is during the day, the roof has to be dry to begin with. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it's a little difficult. We need about 3 days of no rain to be able to analyze these things, because the roof has to be dry. Oftentimes, I'll ask the maintenance personnel to squeegee the roof area if it looks like we're going to have a couple, 2 or 3 days of dry weather, and that will help with that process. What we don't want is standing water, because standing waters will give false readings. Anyway, the roof has to be dry, and what we'll do then is we'll wait. The roof will heat up during the day, and then at the end of the day, when the sun comes off the roof and the ambient air temperature cools about 15 degrees, then the surface of the roof starts to cool, but the areas where there's entrapped moisture, the water acts as a tremendous insulator, and it holds on to that heat. So the areas where there is entrapped moisture will appear as hot spots. And in this iron bow infrared image, that appears as a yellow or white image, as opposed to the red or purple to black, moving from black and cold to white as hot.
So this roof is pretty much fried.
Yeah, the roof in this image is over 70% failed. This is another drone shot. This is actually a big church. They had a lot of different there's a lot of roof to this building. This is not the whole building, and it's different levels and different things like that. This is the pitched roof here in the center. So this doesn't matter. But this end of this roof could be repaired. This was a huge problem for them inside, and they were thinking they had to replace the whole roof, and this is a big place. So this service performed for these people made things much better for them. They could not afford to replace the whole roof. They couldn't, and they felt like that's what they had to do. And they really only had to replace this last quarter of this roof, and then this section over here needed to be replaced, and some patching in a few other places. And it's been 3 years since this service was performed, and they're still okay. So they may be calling me back to see how the rest of the place is doing. This is actually another drone shot. This is a 2-level roof, and this is mostly an image of this end of this upper section of roof, showing these very specific areas that are targeted with moisture entrapment. You can also see over on this lower section over here that this whole half of this building is in trouble on that section.
Oh, look at that.
This is kind of a nice image because you can see a very specific areas where there's entrapped moisture, as opposed to, a whole section. And that's one of the things. I get such great detail with these drone images. You can, put a patch there instead of, well, just cut this thing off and throw it away. The drone it's a better tool. It's better than you could shoot a big roof from an airplane or a helicopter, but these things don't really sit still that well, and they're farther away from the roof. With a $100,000 camera, that doesn't matter so much, but for most of us normal humans, that's a little outside of our reach. And View Pro is $10,000, and it works fabulously, and it gives tremendous resolution, and you can set it however high you want to from the roof. You can't fly a helicopter under 500 foot over the surface. You can't do it. So you're still quite a ways away from things. And this technology, or this combination of technologies, allows me to do a better job than ever before. And the images that I get using the drone are far superior than any other method I have used to analyze a big flat roof.